Hello?
We're having some technical difficulties. We're trying to get them worked out. So I give.
It works.
All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the August 26, 2019 Westminster City Council meeting. As always, in the back of the room and in the front are displays of the American flag, so would you could please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ms. Parker, would you take the roll, please?
Atchison.
Here.
DeMott.
Here.
Haney. Here. Mankey. Here. Seitz.
Here.
Scully.
Here.
Bowles.
Here. Council, at this time, would ask you to consider the minutes of the August 12th meeting and ask for a motion to either accept or deny those. Ms. Seitz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that the City Council approve the minutes of the regular meeting of August 12th, 2019 as presented.
Mr. DeMott.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. Okay. In the event that you are here for item 10A or 11A, this has to do with the St. Mark's Village. We have been trying to get the word out as much as we could that we have had a request from the applicant to continue that meeting to let them deal with some issues that came up at the Planning Commission Board. They have requested to move this meeting to September the 9th in order to not keep you here all night, because if you testify tonight, you will be testifying during citizen communication. Does not count for the application process because you can only testify about the application at the public hearing for that item. I'm going to try to save you from sitting here till the very last item on the agenda. If you wish to stay and talk about something to do with that at the public comment period, you're more than welcome to do that. You'll have your time, just as anybody else does, during that 5-minute period. But if you want to save yourself testifying twice, once we make the motion, if it passes to defer it, then I would offer you the opportunity to go home and enjoy the rest of your evening or sit and listen to what's going on at council. So it'll be your option. So council, we have had a request by the applicant for the St. Mark's Village to defer the hearing tonight, which was originally deferred from the previous meeting, to a date certain of September the 12th. At this point, I would entertain a motion to move this item up on the agenda first so we can deal with it now. Ms. Sights.
Thank you. Pursuant to City Council rules and regulations, Part 2, Section 1, which states that the order of business may be changed by a majority vote of members present, I move to change the order of business to allow for considerations of items 10A and 11A at this time.
Is there a second to the motion? Ms. Haney?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion by council? Seeing none?
I do.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Mr. Volk.
I just want to, I guess, confirm, this is a regular occurrence. This is relatively new process for me. So when we do this,
Yes.
we do this very regularly. It's if applicant asks for it, we typically do this. So it's nothing out of the ordinary, correct?
That's correct.
Yeah, okay. Very
Yeah,
good. Thank you.
It's their hearing that they're asking to have delayed.
Yep, all right, thank you.
All right, is any other questions? If not, all in favor of the motion to bring this forward at this time, please signify by aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, we are now going to deal with the second item out of order. This will be dealing with the continuance. This is the actual motion for the continuance of both items 10A and 11A. Mr. Demott?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move to approve the applicant's request for continuance to a date certain of September 9th, 2019. Items 10A, public hearing for consideration of preliminary development plan and official development plan for St. Mark Village. And 11A, first reading of Councilor's Bill number 27 regarding St. Mark's Village Comprehensive Plan Amendment.
Is there a second to the motion? Ms. Haney?
I second it.
Any further discussion of this motion at this time? If not, go ahead, Ms. Sight.
We have a pretty packed room tonight, so I think there's a lot of public interest in this land use hearing. So I would encourage all of you to please come back and make sure your voice is heard, so it is captured for the public record, and it is something that we can consider. I know it's frustrating. A lot of you run into us at Costco or around the neighborhood and want to talk about this issue. But really, for the fidelity of this process, we cannot talk outside of a public hearing about this. So if you have an opinion, let us know during the public hearing. Thank you so much.
Ms. Parker, you had a comment? Mr. Franco?
Procedurally, would recommend that we include in that motion that the start time of the hearing on September 9th will be, I understand, 6 p.m., which is 1 hour earlier than a typical council start time, to ensure that everyone is aware that on September 9th, this would be a hearing starting at 6 p.m.
Okay. I'll ask if the maker of the motion will accept an amendment to the motion to state that the starting time for that evening will be 6 p.m.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to allow us to add the start time for September 9th to be 6 p.m.
All right, Ms. Haney, will you agree to that as a second?
I accept the amendment.
All right, we have a motion with an amendment to allow this motion to also read as stated previously, but with a start time add of 6 p.m. for that evening. Any other questions or comments from council? Ladies and gentlemen, this is a vote with your lights, please. And the motion carries on a 7-0 vote. So ladies and gentlemen, just to reiterate, if you're here for the public hearing and you wanted to testify on behalf of the St. Mark's Village application, this is now continued till September the 6th starting at 6 p.m.
9th.
Sorry, 9th. I got 6s and 9s. Either way, we're not going to hear it tonight. So if you choose to stay, please do. If you choose that you're going to excuse yourself to this time, we certainly understand, but we wish you the best. Yes, ma'am. Understanding that the statements that you make will not be part of the public record, and we cannot consider it when it comes to the application. And just, again, I have no problem you doing that as long as you understand it will not be part of the record for that hearing. Yeah, you could do it in writing if you'd like. That way, then it will be in the record. So when we get to that point, it will be your choice, as long as you signed up to speak. Okay.
I understand we have no chance to object to the continuance.
No, sir, it's not your option. This is an application. How many of you here in the audience are here for the Spirit Award piece for tonight? You're sitting in the wrong place. Please come up here. I just thought you were coming for free, don't you? Fill in back here. Yeah, thanks, Mike. Stand on this podium.
Not a flattering view, but
The purpose of tonight is to talk about what this group and others like them, and the purpose of them being here tonight to be recognized for something that they go out of their way to do on a part of their job. Well beyond what the requirements of their job are, and they've been recognized by their peers for going above and beyond what's required in their job and helping anywhere they can. So the purpose of the Spirit Award is to recognize individual employees who epitomize spirit consistently in their daily job function. Spirit Awards recognize individual employees who epitomize service, pride, integrity, responsibility, innovation, and teamwork, which we commonly refer to as spirit. This is done consistently in their daily job function. Spirit Awards are meant for employees who have consistently contributed to the organization at a very high level. This award is given out once a year in the summer, and any benefited or non-benefited employee is eligible. Any city employee may submit a nomination for another city employee. 2019, the Employee Recognition Action Team, along with the Executive Leadership Team, wanted to honor all recipients of the Spirit Award since its inception in 2008. Many of the recipients are here in the chambers this evening. I wasn't going to ask them to stand, but it's better to make them come up here to recognize. So from all of us to all of you and those who cannot attend tonight, congratulations and thank you very much for what you do. So on behalf of the group, on behalf of the City Council, myself, and the Executive Leadership Team, the City of Westminster would like to have the following proclamation into effect. Whereas Westminster citizens have given the city very high service ratings at each of the past citizen surveys, attesting to the high quality of services provided by Westminster employees. Whereas Westminster employees are in large part responsible for the city's national and regional reputation for quality, progressive municipal government, and whereas the 1,077 full-time and part-time benefited employees and over 1,021 seasonal and non-benefited employees have contributed significantly to the quality of life in Westminster. Whereas these employees who are employed in the city attorney's office, city manager's office, community development, economic development, finance, fire, general services, human resources, information technology, parks, recreation, labor, police and policy and budget, and public works and utilities department comprise a workforce that is unquestionably one of the city's most valuable resources. Whereas the week of September 2nd, 2019 will include several other activities designed to express appreciation to city employees. Now, therefore, I, Mayor Herb Aston of the City of Westminster, Colorado, on behalf of the entire council, do hereby proclaim September 2nd through September 5th, 2019, as City of Westminster Employee Appreciation Week, signed the 26th day of August, 2019. Ladies and gentlemen, congratulations to all of you. If you didn't get behind the fence, we'll ask you to accept this. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you again for everything you do, and we appreciate greatly the work you provide here.
Thank you. That's sweet.
John, stop.
You had to get way in the back to get to All right, the next item on our agenda is the period of time for citizen communications. So let me again explain the process. When your name is called, if you have signed up, I have 2 sheets up here so far. Come to the podium. Once we've identified who you are, either by me calling you or you telling us who you are. If I've got your name here, I do not need your address. The green light will come on and that will start your time. You have up to 5 minutes. 4 minutes in, it will have the yellow light come on, and when your time is up, the red light will come on and we'll ask you to leave the podium at that time. The purpose of this is for us to hear issues from you. This is not a time that we go back and forth, but everything you're telling us is recorded, and we have your contact information here on the sheets, and when I call you up, please come up and do that. We will take you until we are done, and then we will close that and continue with the business of the city. So the first one up is Lindsay Smith.
And go.
As you start talking, then you come on.
Pardon?
Go ahead and start.
Okay. Mayor, councilors, thank you for the opportunity to speak before you. As you know, my name is Lindsay Smith, and I'm running for Westminster City Council. For the past few months, I've knocked on countless doors and spoke with many residents and small business owners on what they love about Westminster, as well as the issues and concerns they have about the city. Overall, I've heard a variety of positive aspects, such as our open space, amazing views of our mountain range, and that we have a very safe community to live in. But there are also several concerns that were discussed, and I'm here tonight to bring them to your attention, as I don't want residents I talk with to feel that they aren't being heard. First concern brought up is noise, especially for folks who live nearby the Rocky Mountain Metro Airport, having concerns due to increased air traffic and the planned expansion. Additionally, with the FedEx facility on Sims, there has been increased commercial traffic on 100th and 108th Avenues. The increased traffic brings another concern across the city, and there have been neighborhoods who are concerned with people running red lights, driving too fast down residential roads, and have asked for speed bumps or calming medians in their neighborhoods to help with this safety concern. With the growth around the region, including Westminster, the wear and tear on our infrastructure is notable. I haven't heard too much aversion to growth, but there are concerns about how we are growing. Such questions come up like, is there enough parking with housing development proposals? Is the city thinking about the pressures of adding more students to already overcrowded schools? Do we have enough water for growth and build out? Was the no boating ban on Stanley Lake the reason for the water rate increase? And I can tell you, when I was walking door to door in June, water rates were not a concern. With such a hot month of July and not much rain as previous months, folks are seeing the effects of the water rate increase and have expressed they can't keep up with watering their lawns because of the increase in costs. Some are very frustrated and ask why they as residents are required to upkeep and beautify their residence, but the city doesn't keep to the same standards. On the other hand, I've also heard that residents are willing to pay whatever it takes for clean drinking water. And while I have but only 5 minutes to speak upon resident concerns, I'm running short of time to express them all. And I've drafted an email to City Manager Don Tripp with remaining concerns, and we'll be sending them along later this week. I've also wanted to take the remaining time I have to speak on one more issue, if I may. And one that's important to our community, and most specifically, the historic Westminster community. I grew up in a small bit with parents as small business owners, and I've seen the value and principles it can instill within a city. Shopping local and buying from small businesses is the foundation and heart of any community and adds vibrancy and soul to the area. And when Creative Corner first opened in historic Westminster, it was such a welcomed addition to the community in which two owners put blood, sweat, and tears into opening a coffee shop, and one with a creative, artsy aspect. In attending the special permit and license board meeting last Wednesday, and in hearing the testimony given that there are no plans to serve, that there are plans to serve coffee in the old Westminster Pub and Tavern, seemed quite odd for a bar, and was very upset to learn about the intentions that would directly compete with small business just 2 doors down. While an addition of a tavern is welcomed and would serve as a good relationship between a coffee shop and a pub house, I would urge you to not support competing customer service hours. While I don't have all the information, I admit, I'm speaking from the heart. And it's instances such as this on why residents are questioning motives on decisions being made. So please continue to allow Creative Corner to be creative, vibrant, and a welcoming addition to our community. Thank you.
Gloria Mascarenas. Gloria Mascarenas. Okay. Dick Johnson. And then some of these names may be the people who've already left, so I'm still going to call them to make sure I don't miss anybody. Dorothy Marshall. Lynn Yoder.
Yes, sir.
Good. Got one.
My issue, first of all, thank you for letting me do this. And I just want to thank you, city council members and city managers, for what's coming your way on the 9th. I just want you to be ready. I thank you for doing that, your job as being here. I know it's going to take a lot of energy to get through that, but I thank you in advance for thinking about that, thinking about us folks out there. But my issue is, 3 weeks ago, I called the city of Westminster to report a lot that was being very overgrown. Weeds were 3 feet tall, higher than the fire extinguishers, and along the fence they were 5 feet tall, and trash everywhere. I mean, trash everywhere. Has never been cleaned up since I've lived here. It's been 2.5 years. Nothing's been done to that piece of property. And it's really a disgrace driving by that every day and looking at that. I saw a mattress laying in there just today. I drove by there this evening, and the folks at who I called at the city of Westminster were very kind, reported to me that they would get back to me. They followed that, and I was told a week ago that this property would be mowed, that the letters had been sent, and that they would be mowed as of last Thursday. So I'm very concerned about that, and I think we as the citizens of this great city of Westminster need to be aware of that. I'll give you the address, and that's enough said.
Give that to the city clerk.
Pardon?
You give that to the city clerk.
Yes, 3100 West 97th Avenue. If that rings the bell, that's St. Mark's property that we're talking about on the 9th. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Lorraine Sherry. Roger Meredith. Indy Blaney.
Hi, my name is Indy Blaney, and I am a former resident of Westminster. I'll probably be a future resident of Westminster. I've lived here most of my life. Right now, I'm living about 30 seconds north of the Broomfield Westminster line, but I spend a lot of time in the art district, and I spend a lot of time talking up the art district to people that I drive for a car service, so I'm always driving people around and I'm telling them about our art district, and I say, yes, we really have an art district, and part of that is to support people and small businesses into staying in business and wanting to be there. And I met Bev a couple of years ago, Bev Capra, who owns Ittle Bits, and I actually lived right behind Creative Corner for a time. And I got to see the vibrancy of living in small town USA again. And when I was driving at the time, so I was literally never home. I'm driving all the time, but when I lived there, it was amazing because I could go into Bev's store and sit there, and if I sat there long enough, everybody in town would stop by, usually with their dogs. And so I got to know my neighbors, which I haven't done since I was a kid. And every time I would go in there, so I would get home, people say, "Hey, Andy, how you doing?" And they knew who I was, and that was a very welcoming thing in a time when we don't get that very often. It's a very special place down there. There's a lot that could be done down there. And the rodeo market, which can't be called the rodeo market because of concerns with Valenti's and things, it can be a very vibrant place. But it shouldn't be competing, especially since the city owns it, it should not be competing with private business, especially people who have put their not only blood, sweat, and tears, but their money into it and their futures into it, and said, this is what we're going to do. We're going to build this, and we're going to have this, and oh, we can't get a variance for a grease trap. Oh, wait a minute, but somehow somebody else can, probably because the city owns it. And I'm sorry, I'm rambling a little bit, and I'm probably talking out of turn, and I don't know how you got my name on that list. I was like one of the last people to sign up. I wish I could have kind of summarized this, but I just know that it's hard enough to be in business. I've been in many businesses over the years, and it's hard enough to be in business and try to stay in business without having to compete with the city for business. And there are a lot of creative things that can be happening down there. There are a lot of creative people down there to make things happen. And it seems, since I've been involved, and I was with the art district and the swag when they were down there, and it seemed like everything that we tried to do, it just wasn't working. It wasn't working because there was always something that was being turned down, or it wasn't happening. And there should be support for this art district. There should be support for a little bit of Old Town, because we have everything else. Westminster has amazing stuff everywhere. And I do still consider myself a part of this community, and I will be. I went to school here from first grade through 12th grade. I've been here forever. My parents were here forever, and this is a neighborhood that we can't let go. It's a neighborhood that is vibrant and should be kept as a very special part of the whole of Westminster. That's all I've got. Thanks.
Laura Beeman. Amy Loader. Mary Jo Studerwick.
I wanted to comment on RTD and Westminster issues in my neck of the woods, which is 135th, 134th Avenue. I'm way north of Westminster, and they are changing the 128. I commute downtown, and I do take the 128. They are eliminating the 134th route which is where I get on. In other words, I won't have bus service on RTD after they make their changes. When I asked the RTD lady about this afternoon, actually, and I asked about Westminster commenting on this, because they're shipping everybody from Westminster into Thornton to go up the N line. For me personally, if I could get a route, which I cannot after this, it would add between 40 minutes and an hour and a half to the commute. When I asked what Westminster had said about doing this, they said that Westminster chose not to participate. I'm wondering why. So.
Debbie Teeter.
Hi, I'm Debbie Teeter, and I live at 7996 Bradburn. And first, I would like to thank Westminster for allowing the National Auto Body Council to once again give away a car to two deserving residents experiencing transportation challenges. We'll be working with Growing Home, and we'll be working with Volunteers of America. Cars were donated by Geico and also from Rich Seymour's agency, State Farm. So I hope I said State Farmer. I can't remember. No, Farmers. Sorry, it's Farmers. So thank you for that. I'm here to talk about what's going on in 73rd Avenue. I really was excited to hear that we were going to have a brewery. And then I asked, when I found out it was a tavern, how will this change? Because I really don't want a bar down in that area. And well, a tavern license, I saw what kind of license it was. So, oh, it's a restaurant. That's great. And I fully support all that. I was in that building for 7 years volunteering with SWAG, so I know the disrepair of the building. So I understand the money given to upgrade this building, and I applaud that. But my concern is when the city starts acting as a business manager and also creating the rules, because it seems that we can skew those rules to our advantage. So we have Creative Corner down there, and they're a small coffee shop. They're not a Starbucks, and they don't intend to be a Starbucks. They're a gathering place with coffee. Sweat and tears, as we heard, they grew their business. And it's a small, intimate place, very enjoyable. And then in comes the restaurant developers. So I looked up the restaurant developers, and they're not a large chain. I love that they're a small Colorado chain, so that fits. But why are they allowed to directly oppose and compete unfairly with this small business, given that they're given a lot more money to get going? So Creative Corners did not get free rent. So I pulled up some stuff off the internet, and just bear with me for a sec, because I think Phyllis Hunzinger says it better. And of course, the phone's not going to work. And Phyllis Hunzinger is with the Information Freedom Act, or the Freedom and Responsibility, Private Enterprise versus Government. She wrote a nice paper. She's from the Western Slope, superintendent. She really supports free enterprise. So, what she says is the problem arises when governments reach beyond the scope of their defined purpose. Far too often, elected officials want to tackle some perceived need or respond to some citizen group request, and the result is an overreach of government. When governments compete with private enterprise, the playing field is skewed. Since government operates on money, they say confiscated, I'm not going to say confiscated, money gained from taxation, the government actually has no skin in the game. Government can choose to spend money on projects that will likely be an unprofitable venture because, after all, it is not their money. Government employees rarely have the expertise to research, design, or manage private business, and their motivation for making the business profitable is minimal. Private enterprise, on the other hand, is more discerning about the projects for which their private funds are being invested. Private enterprise will not invest in projects unless the research indicates a likelihood of return for profit. Creative Corners is not doing this for profit. They're really doing it for the community. But they also did their research. When I talked to them yesterday, they said they researched why other coffee shops have not tried to come in the area. Why should they be so special? Said because it's too difficult to work with the city of Westminster down there. I found out firsthand how hard it is to work with the city of Westminster in getting licensing and permitting. I found out from my sister, who is working with commercial development, why their agencies aren't working with the city of Westminster. They're difficult to work with. So here we go. We're difficult to work with, so how do we get people to work with us? We give them things. So we give things away instead of working with the people that are here, that want to help elevate the city and elevate the image of the city. So I'm just asking for you to at least consider this small amount with Creative Corners and have opposing hours for the coffee if they're going to serve it at the tavern. Do something that helps them with their marketing plan, and they're really not asking for a gift. I'm asking for that. Do something that helps them with their marketing as well, because it'd be really nice to have this little tavern down there and then also have a nice little community coffee shop run by citizens of South Westminster. Historic Westminster. Sorry, Gary. Thank you.
Patricia McGuire.
May I have this entered into the record? Good evening. I appreciate the chance to speak to you tonight. My name is Patricia McGuire, and I am co-owner of Creative Creative Corner Coffee at 3965 West 73rd Avenue in the historic Westminster Art District. In October of 2018, my sister and I began the process of opening a coffee shop at that address. We tried in every way to comply with the city as to what needed to be done so we could obtain a license to open. We worked hard, but felt like the city was running us around in circles, as indeed it was. It is all documented in that 6-page timeline which we've created and which has been entered into the record. Good news. Last Wednesday, August 21st, we passed our last inspection and were told we would receive our license. Yay. Bad news. The following day, we learned that the proposed brew pub that is going in just a few doors away from us would also be housing a full-service coffee shop, with the city as its landlord, and basically being backed financially by the city. Now, landlords tend to favor their own business concerns, sometimes to the detriment of other independently owned businesses, and I feel that Westminster might do the same as a landlord, as is evidenced by the fact that when the rodeo was operating as an art gallery, they were allowed to sell coffee, including espresso, without a grease trap, which has been a real bone of contention. Let me repeat that. They were allowed to sell espresso without a grease trap. We have not been afforded the same consideration. Now, I understand that competition cannot be regulated, but I feel a gross injustice will occur if you don't take a closer look at this situation before moving forward. I've spoken with legal counsel, and he was quite surprised that any city would do this at all, would support this competitive coffee shop going in, but said that it is made much worse because of all the help that the city is giving to them. Now, our little shop has essentially become a gathering place that the area both needs and wants, and we are not a restaurant, nor are we a coffee shop like Starbucks. We don't want to be. We're just a small shop where the guy from down the street can meet a few of his friends, have a cup of coffee, and good conversation. We didn't feel that this was such an implausible task when we started, but we're finding out that although the city of Westminster touts itself as being small business friendly, what they really mean is only if you have lots of money to begin with. That leaves a lot of people out in the cold. We believe in free enterprise and supportive of a restaurant and pub going in on our block. But we are already establishing ourselves as a small coffee shop in the area. And what I'm asking for is simply that the city stop victimizing us, stop bullying us, and begin to treat us fairly by giving us the chance to succeed without the unfair competition of the bigger guys, which is basically being financed by the city. Thank you for your attention.
Ashley Kennedy.
Hello. Thank you guys for letting us all speak tonight. I live right behind the Creative Corner where Indy said that she used to live. I've been a resident there for 2.5 years now and have watched Patricia and her sister Kathleen try and build this business. And I also saw the Swag art company or art gallery operate out of the rodeo market. I was kind of sad to see them leave, but with the addition of the Creative Corner, now we have another place that we can gather as a community. And I'm happy to be involved in the community, and through Creative Corner and through Bev's gallery, little bits of this and that, I've got to meet a lot of other people in my community. I recently read the agenda memorandum from the Westminster Housing Authority meeting and was dismayed to see that it's cost prohibitive for the city to reimburse WHA for the 2004 acquisition costs for the rodeo. though they're willing to put $800,000 into the building to house a brew pub, which we are all very happy about, but to put that amount of money into a competitive business is kind of a slap in the face for our community. Yes, we want something in our community like a restaurant or brew pub, but we also would really like to support the community itself in our small business endeavors. I don't think that a large grease trap for a coffee shop is necessary, and I'm still very confused why that was a source of contention getting Patricia and Kathleen their business license. But I think that this is a very unfair situation, putting that much money into a very old building in a neighborhood that, yes, definitely needs help, but to do that in direct competition with a small business that is already established in the community is very unfair. And I would just like to ask you guys to reconsider letting them run a competing coffee shop or financing running a competing coffee shop. Thank you.
Charlie Woolley.
My name is Jordan Zielinski with St. Charles Town Company. I'd like to speak on behalf of Charlie Woolley, if that's okay.
Hang on a minute, I'm not sure I can.
Sorry, Mayor, our rules and regs do not contemplate allowing people to cede their time to proxy speakers. However, I believe we'll have plenty of time at the end of your list to invite others up to speak, if that is okay.
You can come back and speak as yourself.
Okay, great.
Elizabeth Price.
Mr. Mayor and all my friends on the council, I know most of you, greetings. I'm Elizabeth Price, and I'm a 65-year member, 65-year resident of Westminster. We moved out here when there were less than 2,000 people. So I'm still very concerned. I live in the South Westminster area, which is now considered the Westminster Historical Arts Center. And I would wish to report some issues, bring up some issues relating to the Westminster Pub, which is to be located in the Rodeo Market Community Center originally. Only recently we understand that the pub will have a bar, a restaurant, and a coffee shop. And I have other issues. One, I hold in my hand a copy of the notice relating to the liquor license permit for the pub house. It was delivered to one of the residents in my area. I made copies of it and passed it around the neighborhood. And several people in that neighborhood, in my neighborhood, did come to last Tuesday's, it was on Wednesday the 21st. They came and businesses, and so I passed it on to 73rd business people and to officers of the Westminster Presbyterian Church. I know that Ron Hillbush expressed his concern at the scheduled meeting. His concern related to the parking for Westminster Pub in relationship to the church's parking lot. I also have concerns, and we do not want our parks in the area, especially the sculpture park, may be made into a parking lot. Do we know the hours of the pub and how it might affect the parking with the other businesses and the activities at the Grange Hall and activities at the Westminster Presbyterian Church? I am also concerned about the trash issue. I don't want to have to pick up bottles, trash paper, and park parties after any event that happens there. The parks are for enjoyment of the public and should continue to be inviting and beautiful. I am also concerned and question the amount that taxpayers' money is going to support the rodeo market for the Westminster pub. I hear that through the taxpayers, the fund could exceed $800,000 to convert an old building that was bought under HUD. And it was originally for the Artistic Community Center. The street was originally marked as the beginning of the Art District, the historical Westminster Art District. This building did serve as an art center. I feel that that's an awful lot of money from taxpayers to go into that building on 73rd Avenue. I don't think there have been any meetings, committee meetings, community meetings held in relationship to that building or to the pub. For several years, local business owners just a few doors to the west has been working with the city to establish and open a coffee shop, which is now, I think, finally licensed. And I'm very unhappy with the city on how the owner became so frustrated and constantly under pressure as she tried to get the license for the small Creative Corner coffee shop, just a few doors up the street. Now with the coffee shop planned in the pub that will be in competition with the locally owned coffee shop just a few doors up the street. The community loves that area down by that coffee shop. They love the friendship and fellowship created over coffee, plus the programs they schedule in that Creative Corner coffee shop. I have an open mic. People are very interested in that. My new tenants from out of town, out of the country, out of the area, are loving that area because it's like home to them. Drop by. Come on, people. Drop by and come down to the coffee shop. So I think, personally, we need to have several questions answered and issues discussed before the pub becomes a permanent business on 73rd Avenue. Thank you at all.
Lynn Smith. Beth Capra.
Mr. Mayor, council members, neighbors, and supporters of Crafty Corners. I'm Bev Capra, 82 years old, last week, lifetime member, resident of Westminster. I own one of the historic homes in the heart of Westminster. I also own a commercial building at 396965 West 73rd Avenue. I've owned that building for 43 years. I've seen lots of things come and go. My new statement around there is that most of my roots go deeper than most of the trees around there. There wasn't paving on the street. The trees weren't in the parks. I love the area. I have a great love and an interest and a dedication to keeping that historic Westminster area a warm, friendly area to visit. I operate my gallery at that location in a very community-minded, warm manner. Stop by and see sometime if you don't believe me. Not all cities are fortunate enough to have an original historic area that they can boast about. Unfortunately, the city does not share my love and interest and dedication in that area until just recently, it seems. For the past 3+ years, we've been attempting to bring a coffee shop to the 73rd location. And I want to correct some of the statements that have just been made. The girls do not have a permit to run a coffee shop. Through all the attempts and the efforts, we only have permit to run a retail shop with the hostess station. That's it, which means it's a 3-burner that you have in your kitchen. So we're not a real coffee shop like we'd like to be. That's what we aspire to be. Okay, the community strongly expressed their desire to have a gathering place where they could purchase a non-alcoholic beverage, a pastry, or a sandwich, where they can go and enjoy the work of local artists and attend many of the classes that are offered there. Our endeavors to make this happen have been stymied at every attempt by a new or a different requirement from the city. Now, I think we've just found out why we've been stymied. Seems the city has entered into a leasing contract with private individuals to rent a city-owned building. The contract, which we've read, states that the city will be spending $793,000, that's $750,000 of our tax money to bring this building up to code. Those individuals will also receive the first year rent-free and reduced rent for several years after that. And guess what? They're not only investing our tax dollars, you are not only investing our tax dollars in a tavern and a bar and a cafe, which we supported in that area, but also you're investing in a full-fledged coffee shop, which we can't get off of the ground, but you can. The coffee shop is located exactly 85 feet from our establishment. We have to refer to our business as the un-coffee shop at the Creative Corner. One of the requirements from the city has been a 750-gallon grease trap. Many buildings and businesses around the area, including a very popular deli, who serves meats, cooks pizzas, they don't have a grease trap. All we want to do is serve coffee and packaged food. Okay. The cost to install that grease trap is in excess of $25,000. And in my opinion, totally unnecessary. Licensed bonded plumbers have actually shared my opinion on that. In closing, folks, I just have one question to ask city and council. Are you wanting us to leave our beloved city so that you can bring in big business and strangers? Thank you.
Barb Struck, are you in the audience? All right, Barb, just stay there for a second. Stay there. Yeah, just sit for a second. We've had a request that we have someone needs a bio break, so I'm going to ask you just to stand by. I want to make sure you're still here. As soon as we come back, Barb, you'll be first up, and then the gentleman who wanted to testify earlier that did not sign up, we'll take him, then we'll take anybody else that's in the audience. So for right now, we're going to take about 5 minutes for a bio break.
First time I've eaten boulders.
All right, Michelle, you ready?
Ready.
Okay. Ms. Struck?
Good afternoon. My name is Barbara Struck, and I have concerns also regarding the coffee shop and the pub. My number one concern is, are you going to have enough police to take care of the rowdy people that might start to come along and visit the pub? The other night, I had gunshots at 3:15 in the morning. The police found 7 .45 caliber casings in front of my house. So my question to you is, are you going to be able to take care of all the disturbances at the pub? I also want to ask about the traffic. I live on 75th and Wilson Court. I know there's going to be traffic there. I don't want parking all the way up to my residence, even though it is public parking. Evidently, Sunset Limousine can park wherever they want and create traffic problems. I don't want that problem on my street. It's a residential, quiet neighborhood. I also want to know why you can subsidize Alamo for under $700,000 when it went in, and you're also subsidizing this for a little over $700,000, and you can't have Bev and you can't help her out even though she's been here for how many years? I'm just a concerned citizen. I enjoy going down there, and I think it's really wrong for what you have done to her business. I even watched how the city has made that person jump through hoops. I am ashamed and appalled at all of you for doing that to her. And you're letting another business come in, stroll in, and do whatever they want. You should all be ashamed of yourselves. And I also want to say, how come this guy can come in and decide where he can park? That he can go ahead and do whatever he wants, where he wants to put an entrance to the parking. That's not fair. He can decide whether or not where he wants to place the garbage cans. That's the Grange's property. He has no right to do that. So I just want to let you know one other thing. You had the Spirit Award, and I think that's very, very great. Last year, I approached this, and I told you all about the gentleman who saved my husband's life. Not once did he get a commendation from you people. Not one. I emailed every single one of you people. I've also emailed the commissioners. Not one person said, that's great, and we're going to give him an accommodation. It's too late now because he moved on to a better job. But if this is the way you're going to treat the average person, I'm very disappointed, and I'm not happy, and I do not like the way you're treating the ordinary citizen. I think you should rise up and really decide whether or not you're going to do all of us citizens who are part of the community, or you're going to let big business come in and say exactly what they want to do when they want to do it. I think it's appalling, and I hope you understand that we want that coffee shop down there, and there should be no competition whatsoever. Thank you.
Mr. Work.
Hello. As you may know, my name is Kevin Work. I'm here on behalf of Friends of Stanley Lake in hopes to get recreational boating back on Stanley Lake. Apologize, you guys didn't get to see my face a couple weeks ago. We had back to school night, so I had to weigh my battles there. So last time we spoke, we had submitted solutions to the city, and we were waiting to hear back on these solutions. We had a tagging meeting this week, and we have heard back some of the feedback from different members of the city's task force, if you will. And it sounds pretty promising. We submitted some no-key locks, which is a pretty fancy lock that tells you GPS when it's open, when it's not open. It sounds like the city loves that lock. There's a few minor bugs that we are in talks with the company right now to fix, and it doesn't seem to be a problem at all. It's just a problem in the software itself, but they love the firmware and the security of that lock. The other thing we submitted was a tag, a cable tag. This tag had a swage. I briefed you guys on the swage a few months ago on how it's tagged on a wire to make a loop. That swage had a serial number on it, and we gave it to the rangers to try and hack and see if we could see signs of tampering, which means tampering would be evident. They were able to take a Dremel and open that lock and close it, and they said that they made it really hard to tell. I have pictures of this, which I can't show you guys visual aid, but just to give you visual, I showed my 8-year-old daughter, and she, in a second, picked out which one was tampered with. It was very easy to see, and that's what we were striving for. Can it easily be tampered with? And it was. And And then just to note that that person that would have came into the lake and tried to pass that lock that was easily seen tamper with was taking a risk of getting a lifetime ban, a huge fine that is undetermined yet, but you guys have all agreed that you will raise the fine, being kicked off the lake, and everything that comes with that. And I don't think anyone would even take that chance. I know those aren't solutions, those are deterrents, but I think those deterrents are part of the solution because no one would want to take that risk. And again, you have one chance. They have one chance to hack that lock. You don't get any other chance. So that guy took a huge risk. And again, an 8-year-old with no training. I didn't even know she knew what the word tampering meant. I just said, which one of these is tampered with? She pointed to the one instantly. So that being said, I believe these swage cables are pretty solid. But on another note, we also submitted to the Noki locks to integrate the cables into the locks, which would even eliminate that. There's also another clear tag that the Rangers have admittedly not been able to hack as of yet, and they've tried many, many times, and they get lots of chances, and they still have not been able to do that. So I think we have two solid solutions here that can, if we start in parallel, we can start the other systems that need to be taken in place to start getting boating back in time for next year, because I know it takes a lot of time for legal to write up what they have to write up, to submit the permits and all the paperwork and everything that goes with that. So we're just hoping that the city continues to use some urgency to try and get boating back for next year. It's a solid year for everybody to work. What's I got here? Another concern that I'm getting a lot of questions from the boaters is that this issue stays about ZQN, which is the zebra quagga mussel issue, and not a recreational boating issue. The city has stated from the beginning it's about water quality. We want to make sure it stays as water quality. I know on your website you guys have mentioned there's some minority people that are against the boaters, but I don't see anywhere in there where you're acknowledging the mass amount of people that were for boating. So just to get, again, everybody's percentage of say as accepted on there. And there's a lot of talk about small businesses on here. I eat local around a lot of small businesses around Stanley Lake, and I talk to them all. They all ask me about boating all the time. And they've all been able to noticeably consider the lower amount of volume this year due to all the boaters getting on and off the lake, not going out to eat as much. When you're out there all day, you're hungry. You don't want to go home and cook. Everybody's been going to a lot of those businesses on 100th and Wadsworth, and they considerably noticed that the lot less revenue this summer. So they constantly bug me and get updates from me. So just continue to have an open conversation with you guys. Please keep working with us, and see you in a couple weeks.
Mr. Terry?
Thank you, Mayor and council members, for the opportunity to speak. Brett Terry with Friends of Stanley Lake. I think Kevin did a great job of giving you guys a quick update on kind of what we've been working on with the tagging subcommittees as well as the boaters task force. I think we're getting very close to solutions as Kevin just reported out. So tonight I just thought I'd point out a couple of things. I did notice that you guys had a closed door session behind study hall doors a couple weeks back. May have been as far as back in July about this time. That was posted. It was not very evident on the website, so some of us just read that document. A couple things I'd like to clarify, though. Seems like there was a fair amount of the talk track inside that document that documented there were 500 people that had given the city some feedback, which is kind of an interesting number that I'll go through here in 1 second. But 350 of those were pro boaters and 150 of those were against boating. I just want it to go on the record as known. We circulated a petition. Don't know what the petition was going to do. It had between 1,500 and 1,800 signatures on it. Not saying everybody's a Westminster resident, but 1,500 people plus signed that one. We had 500 people almost at the very first meeting up here at 104th at the city's recreation facility there. Big meeting. Much in overflow. These are obviously way the heck more than 500 people that said we're pro boating. We've tried to centralize that. We've got 2 Facebook sites. One's got 466 members. The other one has 109. There's chatter on there every single day from the pro boating community. I want it to be known that the pro boating community is a heck of a lot bigger than 500 instances of somebody saying we care about this. Don't know why that's even important. I think it's agreed upon. We believe that boating can be done and should be done on Stanley Lake with no risk to water quality. I think that's where we're all headed. with this, you guys all know it's an election season. We are going to host a Friends of Stanley Lake event on Wednesday, the 18th of September at Kettner Lake. Small little get-together. Sit there, show our support, get some photos. Really look forward to talking to some of the existing council members if you guys want to make it out, or any of the new ones that are running. So just super important to us. I think we are making good progress, so I don't want to sound totally negative, but I didn't go about counting instances. It's a lot more than 350, which was stated in what was handed to you guys in a written doc. I think Kevin did a great job of talking about spending local, right? I can tell you thousands and thousands of dollars were not spent this year. That doesn't go far, right? There were thousands and thousands of dollars that weren't spent on boating passes also. I think we want to bring that money back to Westminster next year. It's all taxed, and you guys get the benefit of figuring out, what we can improve on and go forward from there. So spending local, super important. The boating community wants to do that, and we are here to actually make that happen. Looking forward to next summer. Thank you for your time.
Mr. Valenti.
Good evening, members of council, Mr. Mayor, city management. Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you also for keeping citizen communication at 5 minutes and not cutting it like had been discussed earlier in the year. Much appreciated. It was a good move. I want to set the record straight. I came this evening to sit in support of my colleagues in the neighborhood. I own that deli that was aforementioned. I have a grease trap. I promise you. But I don't have anything on the magnitude of what is being suggested that they need. I understand the city's position on grease, and that sounds kind of awkward, but having been through processes with expansions and dealing with food for decades in this city, I understand wanting to keep the water supply and the sewer lines and everything clean. I think I speak for everybody in this room. If they get dirty, we can't afford to pay you anymore. They're already too expensive. But when we did our last expansion 10 years ago, and a small project turned into a very large, very pricey project because we encountered many of the same business unfriendly brick walls that Bev Capra is talking about, and I think continue in this city. When you're small, it's very hard to do business in Westminster and get things started. But we were told we needed to expand beyond the small grease interceptor that we had in our facility. And we were told that we needed, and of course it was done after we were underway in our project, which meant a modification, which meant more money, which, Mr. Mayor, working in that industry all these years, you understand how that goes, and it doesn't make those on the writing the check in very happy. Ultimately, what happened is they suggested something on the magnitude of what's being suggested for Bev. And I said, where are you going to put it? They said, well, on the south end of your property. That happens to be 72nd Avenue. Can't put it in the middle of a busy street. Okay, then put it behind your property. That's a city-owned alley. The city did not want to enter into an agreement for an easement, et cetera, for a grease trap. Okay, put it on the north end of your property. Well, there's a 2-foot rise in elevation, which would have required a pump and lift station and cost thousands and thousands of dollars. That was not practical. Put it on the west side. I said, are you kidding? Put a grease trap in front of the front door where I'm asking people to come into my business. I don't think they need to be subject to that smell. Ultimately, what happened is they worked with my plumber, and we have a smaller in-ground solution, which more than meets the needs of the grease that we produce because we don't have fryers, etc. I understand that coffee can produce more grease than most people realizes, but I think there are other options. I think there are other alternatives out there. I would strongly encourage that if there's any sort of takeaway from this meeting tonight, that you direct staff to sit down and contact Ms. Capra and work with staff and see if you guys can get to an expedient solution that meets the needs of what the city's trying to accomplish and gets the business up and running without going through all of the strictures of, well, code says this, code says this. Sometimes code is overkill, and in this case, it sounds like it might be. As for the other issues, the building located at 3915 West 73rd Avenue, good luck with that. I welcome a business going in there, but the city hasn't made the proper investments in the city-owned property for a very long time, and I'm sure that a lot of those expenses are getting it back up to snuff, which is very unfortunate that that has been allowed to happen. So, but I would hope you work with Bev and her people. That's all I have to say.
All right, that took care of everybody that I have that's shown us are signed up. Is there anyone else other than this gentleman here? You want to come up and identify yourself, your name and your address for us, please?
Good evening, Council. My name is Jordan Zielinski, property owner at 3100 West 97th Avenue. On behalf of St. Charles, we just wanted to thank you guys for continuing the St. Mark Village hearing until September 9th. We received an objection from a neighboring property owner at the Planning Commission hearing on August 13th. We had never heard from that property owner prior to that, so we felt we needed a little bit more time to address their objections and hopefully bring them on board in support of St. Mark Village. And then second off, I heard a gentleman, Mr. Yoder, earlier this evening mention weeds on our lot. On August 19th, I received a notice that there were overgrown weeds. The notice was dated August 13th. We had previously had the lot scheduled to be mowed on September 15th. I tried to get that moved up to yesterday, August 25th. The landscaper's truck is broken, so he's committed to next Saturday, September 1st, or whatever the date is. So it will get taken care of. It's routine maintenance. Thank you.
This time, to have anyone else who wishes to provide any testimony on an item that they'd like to talk about. Yes, ma'am, come on down. And for the record, will you need to identify yourself, your name, and your address for us, please?
My name is Denise. I'm short. My name is Denise Morgan. I live at 7687 King Street in Westminster. I've lived there since 2013. We just got our house in December before the boom. So I live with my kids. We have a quiet street. I've been doing crafting. I'm an artist, local artist. I've been doing crafting since, grade school. Because my mom and dad had an antique store, and then it went from there. The feeling, nobody's talked about the feeling. Well, yes, they have. They've expressed it very, very well about the feeling that you get in when you go into a creative corner. I've met these gals at an event where you just, sell things at December in a church, or, I've done crafting at Wheat Ridge Carnation Festival. That was pretty fun. But I felt I was spending my money in different places. I want to stay in Westminster. This is a godsend for me. You don't make money if you're an artist, but you get the appreciation, you get the camaraderie, you get, that is so cool. I love that. Whenever time I go in there, and people that I've seen come in there, I love this place. It's so nice and quiet. I can decompress, have a cup of coffee, get away from the house. And I get to sell my stuff. So you too can have a shirt like that. Thank you very much for hearing all of us. It's everything they've said. I don't know business. I know crafts. And I just did a watercolor class. I mean, I've been doing stuff for years, but I learned something. It was so great, the camaraderie, community. That's what I think. Thank you.
All right, do we have anyone else?
Good evening, Mayor Atchison, City Councilors. My name is Gary Shea. I live at 3801 West 76th Avenue. Thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening. I had come, or I'd originally intended to come here this evening and talk about a larger issue. Your task as councilors is to make good decisions based on the information that you have at hand, and you have to have confidence that that information is accurate and concise. myself and other members of the community down in historic Westminster have been involved with the 7225 Bradburn for since 2011, since the city took it over, and have been trying to educate ourselves at every turn. I was involved in an incident, I'm not sure if some of you are aware of it, on June 24th of this year. There was some significant things that happened, and I was hearing different things. I always had the feeling that you weren't receiving all of the information, all the accurate information, and so I've never been compelled to do this, but I filed an open records request. It's taken a little bit to get the majority of that. What I have attained, and I've maybe shared it with a couple of the councilors too, pretty concerning, the internal communications that have taken place in regards to me, in regards to the property. So that's a larger issue. There's plenty of time. I'd rather not do it in this forum, but there's plenty of time that I can come back and do that. What I would like to speak about too, and I think it kind of talks a little bit about, you can only make decisions, good decisions based on the information that you've got. I've been involved with Bev. She's a great neighbor. I love the galleries down there and the shops. She probably, she is the ambassador for historic Westminster down there. She's involved with the community. She, at every turn, I can't even keep up with her when she decides to be involved in an event down there, and the amount of her own personal money that she invests in that. So just an amazing person. I can't hold a candle to her. So I've watched her struggle labor with cleaning things, with everything that I can to do that. So and also, too, most of you are aware, too, that I manage the day-to-day operations of the Westminster Grange, which is direct neighbors to the old Westminster Pub and Tavern. Haven't had any communication. In fact, I've known something was going to happen in that property since the first of the year, but haven't had any communication. In fact, at one point, too, I was told, well, it's a secret. Okay, I understand that. On Tuesday of this last week, I finally was contacted and was able to meet with the current tenants that are going to be in there. We met down at the property. They showed me preliminary plans and realized, too, this is all preliminary there. But, and they were meeting with me because of my management of the Grange property. One of the things that we've dealt with for years and years down there that we've always asked about is we're strapped for parking. We really should address that. And the second thing that we asked for too was we need a restaurant or a cafe. And this has been 10 or 15 years ago. We need a restaurant or a cafe as a seed to get that area to really start to grow. So a move in the right direction that the city has made there too. I met with the owners on Tuesday. I was shocked when they showed me their plans. They mentioned that they have parking in the back. Also to the location of their parking and everything, but their ask is that we access our parking lot through the Grange driveway and parking area. Also too, they talked about putting their restaurant dumpsters right next to the stage door on the back of the Grange, and then their food service trucks, liquor deliveries, and also service to their dumpster would be through the Grange parking lot. It was not agreed on at that time. I think that they realized that probably that's a no-go for the Grange. We just can't allow that. We're strapped for parking as it is anyway. That being said, I want to just leave you with a couple of things. Looking back when they appointed the councilors that are on the positions right now, there was a couple of questions that were asked of them. One of those was, what would you do to make Westminster a more welcoming city? Right now, these ladies aren't feeling like they're welcome in Westminster. The other question is what is your definition of political courage? And I think we're all hoping that we see that up on council here. So thank you for your time.
Last call. Do you have anyone else? This time we'll close the citizen comment and return to the rest of our agenda. Mr. Tripp, report of the city officials, please.
Thank you, Mayor and members of council and everyone who's attended this evening. Thanks for coming and making comments. My comments are in three areas. I want to talk about the coffee shop really quickly and give you some background on that. I want to talk about the tavern. not so much, but as it relates to some of the comments that have been made, and I want to talk about historic Westminster and our commitment to this area. First of all, in the coffee shop, from the information I have that I've shared with council, about a year ago, we became aware of an interest in doing a coffee shop that Bev Capper had. It's now called Creative Corner. And during the course of that time, it was shared with the developers, and I believe Bev, that a grease trap would be necessary. I wish it wasn't, but the fact is it's a very, coffee use is a very potentially damaging thing to our infrastructure in our sanitary sewer operation, so it's necessary. And there really isn't any way to get around it. It's difficult because the grease trap is a relatively expensive investment for a small business, and as was reported tonight, we think it's around $20,000. I think Bev said maybe around $25,000, but it's significant. But I want you to know that, which I told you, that right after the first of the year, we offered to the developers that we would provide them a cash grant towards the grease trap, and that further, we would bring to you an economic development sort of an agreement that maybe would provide more assistance than the $5,000 to them. So the door has been open to do that. They've not responded to it, and the door is still open to do that. We would be very happy to talk with you. We'd be very happy to talk with you about it, but we have offered it, and it continues to be on the table. I only say that because I want to emphasize that I think we all believe that the idea of that coffee shop was a really good idea, that Bev has run a nice business there at the end of the block, and that this would be an addition to the community that would be consistent with your strategic goals. And then that takes me to the second one, the tavern. So you have a strategic goal that this council and previous councils have had for a long time. I'd say this council was even more adamant about it during our last strategic planning session, and that was to find businesses and really to find ways to activate 73rd Avenue. I have to tell you, I think that with the business operator that approached us that owns land in the area, has other businesses, and has shown the ability to operate as a small business owner and operator in multiple locations, I think 3 other locations in the metro area. We've been really excited about that. So the building, the only building that was really an opportunity to do that is the Rodeo Market, a building that has had a lot of deferred maintenance over a long period of time and requires, no matter what happens to it, several $100,000 worth of investment in order to make it usable. We believe this is a really viable use, and he is a good operator. We're proud to be in a business relationship with him. We're not after large versus small businesses. He is also a small business, certainly a different sort of a business. We didn't go into the deal with him with the idea that he would be doing coffee, but I understand how he wants to make his business model work, and apparently he's added that to his business model now. I'm happy to learn more about that and report that to you, but I have a lot of trust and confidence in our economic development staff in trying to work through those issues. And I would say on the first issue, working through the grease trap and potentially supporting Bev and the others in their venture there, the door is open there. We'll continue to have it open, and we'll be glad to talk to you. It brings me to the last thing, and probably the one thing that that honestly is I take a little more personally, and that's that I've been here 7 years. I haven't been here 65 years. I respect those that have, and I you have. This is a wonderful city, and I'm really feel blessed to be in this position. I was the parks director before, but there's a number of people that came up to speak this evening that over the course of my time over 7 years, I've befriended and done everything I could possibly do to help them in things that they wanted to do to try to improve the community. And that continues to be the case. So I want to be really clear about something. We love historic Westminster. We've dedicated a lot of time and resources to it. I know very personally the people who are working down there every day, and they also care a great deal. And I just want you to know that. And I want to put that on the record. And it starts with me. So we're here to help. We'll continue to be. I think we've got a good start. We've got some other things, as you know, that we're working on 73rd Avenue that would allow us to, I think, add some vibrancy to that neighborhood. It's not an easy task. It's not an easy task because there's not been a lot going on there recently. So I will stick to it, but I want you folks to know that I've been friends with a lot of you, and I've helped you before, and I'm glad to do it again. And, everybody's got my phone number. You can certainly call me, but I have a lot of confidence in our economic development staff and the folks that work with you down there. And I'll be surprised if ultimately you're not all very, very happy with the changes that we see in historic Westminster over the next several years. Thanks for the opportunity to comment.
Any comments from council?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you everyone for coming out. I had the pleasure of meeting Patricia and Kathleen last December during the hometown holiday. And I have to tell you, I was delighted. I was excited to have a gathering place on 73rd. And even that night before they were operational, opening it up because it was so cold, I almost froze to death. So I could go in and warm up a little bit and chat with you. And I think that enthusiasm, I can't claim that as my own. I think that enthusiasm is shared with my colleagues on council and also with members of the staff, because everyone believes in the possibility of historic Westminster and the arts district there. And the two things I've felt the entire time I've been on council that would really be a catalyst is a coffee shop and honestly a restaurant and bar. I think that those become, that gives people something to do when they go to the Our River Gallery or do they go to Ittlebits, to stay a little bit longer, to spend a little bit more money in the community and explore it longer. So I'm delighted by this. I know that there has been frustration, but I also believe in the earnestness and desire of our economic development staff to be helpful. And I know that when Patricia, I believe you emailed me in April, and I got right back to you. I touched base with our economic development, and at that time, they even let me know they were looking at ways to assist you with the grease trap. So if that got miscommunicated or lost in the shuffle, give us another chance to talk about it. I'm really enthusiastic about the tavern, but I don't think it's a zero-sum game. I think that I believe in historic Westminster, and I believe in helping encourage investment there, improving the market out, and I'm proud of what we've done to try to get there. But please continue to partner with us.
Scully?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Mayor Tim Seitz, for those comments, because I think they're very important. I think that there is not a person on this city council that is not clear that they want to make sure that the city partners with all of historic Westminster. And I think there's room for all of the businesses in that area, and I think we can work it out. So chin up, we'll keep talking about it. But I do want to talk about some other things that we've also done in the last week, because we've had some very important events. First being the community meeting that we had about a week ago at the NOAA Event Center. And what a success. The room was overflowing with people, and people asked very candid and responsible questions, and our staff was tremendous in answering those questions directly and being very straightforward, and I really appreciate that, so thank you very much. And then today, Councilor Vols and I and the mayor as well, had a very wonderful morning that we got to spend with the mayor and his city council and his city staff from San Bernardino, California, who came, and let me mention also that Sarah Numella was there, John Hall, and John Burke, who were just outstanding in their presentation. It was truly artful, so thank you. But the people from San Bernardino came to Westminster because they were so impressed with our downtown vision, and they wanted to know more about it because they would like to do the same in their city. So we did a tour, and we talked about the vision and how important that vision has been in our city and our growth and our planning. And I'm going to let John take it over from here because he's going to talk a little bit more about that experience.
Thank you, Councilor Scully. I want to thank the mayor and our team for putting that together. It was an excellent meeting this morning, and it really instilled pride for what the city's doing in a lot of areas. So when we're doing that downtown, it really felt good. that another city, and I know we have someone else that wants to come and view that, but staff was excellent, so thank you for pulling that together. I also want to thank, so it occurred to me sitting there that previous councils have shown leadership and have done a lot of work on this. So members of this council and previous councils that showed leadership and foresight in doing what they did to make that a reality, thank you. And again, thanks to our team, the staff who did that. I also want to follow up. We did have a community council outreach, and a lot of you were here. We had a really good crowd there, so thanks for coming. It was great to hear all the feedback. I think it was a really good session. We had over 100 people there, and I also want to thank staff who, that's not their scheduled night to work, but we had a lot of staff there. Dave Downing, I see the back. He helped us out a lot. Sarah, a lot of other people. So thank you for being there and helping us out. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, thank you all for coming this evening. I'm not sure if you're all aware, but frequently this council meets one-on-one with Don Tripp, the city manager. In prior councils, it was more of a quarterly thing where it was more to the weather, how you doing, not necessarily policy issues. I want to make council and members of the public aware that I no longer will be having these one-on-ones with the city manager, Don Tripp. I also want to give some idea to why I made this choice. It takes 4 of us to make policy decisions, and as such, I believe that these one-on-ones don't serve this process. I have asked in the past to have the city manager start sharing and talk about what these one-on-ones are what's happening in each of them, so we each know what our colleagues are working on. I believe without knowing this, and also hearing the discussions and thoughts from each other, members, we don't make the best possible process, best possible policy, because it takes each of us hearing each other's different mindsets, different backgrounds, to make the best decisions. I think that we make better decisions together when we talk through things because we each have different experiences, we come from different parts of the city, and that's how we make the best policy choices. I would use the current example of the Creative Corner as a good example where I think we failed on this. I had no idea that other members of this council had been working on this with City Manager Tripp for many more months than I had ever brought it up to him. That was a revelation to me this week. One that I think, we can do better. I often hear people come recently and talk about communication failures of the city, whether it's the Creative Corner, whether it's Stanley Lake. We've put a substantial amount of investment into changing communication, and I find it odd that we find a failure when we've admitted that we have communication problems. And it's not always on our side, I'll be honest. Sometimes the public gets it wrong too. But the only way that we work through those communication issues is that we don't put our head in the sand and get angry at each other. Instead, we try to find ways to work forward. I find that making this change and making sure that the discussions that happen between each council member on policy issues important to them happen either in that boardroom or up at this dais will best serve you, the public who elected me to take this position of accountability of the city to you, the voters.
Tripp.
We have some very, very honored guests in the audience. I'd like to ask Deputy City Manager Jody Andrews to make an introduction to a couple folks I think you'll be happy to meet.
Later on in this evening, we will, City Council or the WIDA Board will be addressing a resolution regarding an economic assistance agreement with Tattered Cover Bookstore. And I just wanted to acknowledge the presence of Len Vlahos tonight, who's here, and I believe also General Manager Katie Rothery as well. So please thank you for coming, and we really appreciate your participation in the community that we're building together in downtown Westminster.
Ms. Mackey?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to thank everyone who came out to speak on behalf of a Creative Corner and sharing your love of your community with us. I, too, love Patricia and Kathleen's coffee shop and have been in there several times. And I hope that we can really work together to make this work for everyone, because I do believe it offers so much more than just money or revenue. It really is a place where people gather, and I see that and I feel that. So I just hope we can continue to work together on that. Thank you.
Yes, and I want to thank you all for coming.
It's always interesting as public comment is made, you bring up points that I really need to sit and listen and understand and gather more facts. So thank you for pointing out the concerns. Thank you for helping me understand your position, and I will do my research. So thank you very much.
Ms. Sykes?
And I have to apologize. Tonight we recognized a lot of employees that received an award for their spirit values for going above and beyond in the course of their duties, and I forgot to mention and thank them in my comments. But again, thank you to all of those that really serve with a servant leader's heart. So thank you.
Ms. Scully?
I think I want to be really transparent. I'm disturbed by Councilor DeMont's comments. And I'm disturbed because he's implying to me that there's some sort of backroom talk going on. The only time I've ever heard about Creative Corner is when I've been down there myself at Christmas with Maritime Sites. Came in, got warm. I appreciate the warmth. Thank you. I'd love to come back and have a day of knitting. Unfortunately, I've had a very robust schedule for several months, but I will be back down there. I try to go down to Second Saturday as often as I can. It's a big city, and we're visiting a lot of people. So not to feel, I don't want you to feel ignored, but nothing, we don't discuss anything that I'm trying to find out where this is coming from, because when we meet with the city manager, it's briefing, trying to understand certain things. We're getting facts, we're doing research. But we come and visit with you as well, and we're trying to get that research there too. We're trying to understand the story. I don't think anybody's taking sides. I think we all want to see Creative Corner be successful. We all want it to be a coffee shop in that area of the town. We have all been on board with that. I liked the last coffee shop that was there too, and I was very sad when it closed. So I'm disturbed that there would be an implication, or I can't even think out right now, I'm kind of angry, that we are not acting to help the people of our city, because we all care about this city. I would not be up here if I did not care about this city. This job, it's kind of thankless. I'm going to be really honest. But oh my gosh, I've lived here for 27 years and I love this city. And you know what? If this is my last chance to serve my city, then be it. But I will do my best to make sure that the businesses that need to be brought into this city will be brought into this city, and the people will get to live here the way I have lived here for 27 years and enjoy this place. And I'm very sad that someone on our city council would cut off communication in speaking with representatives from our city, because cutting off communication is not the right step. Communicating more is the right step. Trying to really have those conversations, that is what's important.
Other comments from council? Okay. Next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. This is a group of routine matters to be acted on with a single motion and vote. We have reviewed these at the prior meeting. No member of council has asked to have anything removed from the consent agenda, so at this point, I will open up the floor for a motion for item 8A through D. Mr. DeMont.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that the city council adopt consent agenda items 8A through 8D.
Ms. Scully?
I second.
We've had a motion to accept the consent agenda of items 8A through 8D. And if you would, please use your lights. Okay, waiting on one more, guys. Okay, thank you. Motion carries on a 7-0 vote. Next item on the agenda will be item 10B. This is Council's Bill number 34. Mr. DeMont.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move to pass Councilor's Bill number 34 on first reading, providing for supplemental appropriation of funds to move the 2019 budget of general water, wastewater, investigation recoveries, parks, open space, and trails, and general capital improvement funds.
Ms. Mankey.
Thank you. I second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion in regards to item 10B, Councilor's Bill number 34. Seeing none, Ms. Parker, this is a roll call vote.
Atchison.
Yes.
Demott.
Yes.
Haney.
Yes.
Mankey.
Yes.
Sights.
Yes.
Scully.
Yes.
Vols.
Yes.
Motion passes on the 7-0 vote. Next item on the agenda is Council's Bill number 35. Mr. Demott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move to pass Councilor Bill number 35 on first reading, approving agricultural lease agreement for city-owned property known as Strasburg Natural Resources Farm.
Ms. Mankey.
Thank you. I second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second for Council's Bill number 35. Is there any other discussion at this time by council? Seeing none, this is also a roll call vote. Ms. Parker.
Demott.
Yes.
Haney.
Yes.
Mankey.
Yes.
Sights.
Yes.
Scully.
Yes.
Vols.
Yes.
Atchison.
Yes. Motion carries on a 7-0 vote. Next item on the agenda is a recommendation of the city manager for library services divisions for authorization for expenditures. Item 10D. Ms. Sights?
Thank you. I move based on the recommendation of the city manager to determine that the public interest would be best served by utilizing negotiated rates for the 2019 purchases of library electronic materials from Overdrive by the Library Services Division, increasing the authorized 2019 expenditures from not to exceed $80,000 to a total amount not to exceed $130,000.
Ms. Mankey?
Thank you. I second.
Excuse me, I have a motion and a second for item 10D. Is there any comments or discussion by council? Ms. Sights?
I just want to say thank you. We have multiple members from our library staff here in the audience tonight. It is amazing how much you are able to enrich our community with the budget you have, and I'm happy to expand it tonight. So, thank you.
Any other comments from council? Seeing none, ladies and gentlemen, this is a vote with your lights, please. And the motion carries on a 7-0 vote. Next item is item 10E. Ms. Mankey?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move to authorize the city manager to execute an amended contract with Interface Communications Company, Inc. to replace additional traffic signal equipment in 2019 that would add $355,000 to the existing 2019 contract amount of $677,593,000 and authorize a project contingency of $22,000 for a total authorized expenditure with this firm not to exceed $1,054,593.
Mr. Demott?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any questions or discussion by council? Seeing none, ladies and gentlemen, vote with your light, please. And the motion carries on a 7-0 vote. Ladies and gentlemen, for the city council, we have 11-2 is still part of the 11A, correct? Correct. Okay, so that's carried. Okay. All right. So that concludes the business of the Westminster City Council at this time, and we will reconvene under the previous roll call as the Westminster Economic Development Authority to deal with one item of business after we have dealt with the minutes of the preceding meeting of May the 13th. Mr. Demott, if you would be as a board member, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that the board approve the minutes of the May 13, 2019 meeting as presented.
Ms. Scully?
Second.
I have a motion and a second for the approval of minutes. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the minutes are carried. First item of business for the WEDA board tonight is resolution number 198. Ms. Sights?
I'm very excited to make this motion. I move to adopt resolution number 198, authorizing the Westminster Economic Development Authority Executive Director to enter into an agreement with Tattered Cover Bookstore, Inc. as a tenant for the Origin Hotel to subsidize retail rent up to $25 per square foot for 5,500 square foot space over a 5-year term in an amount not to exceed $475,000.
Ms. Haney?
I'd like to second that, Mayor.
I have a motion and a second to adopt resolution number 198. Any discussion or comments from the board? Mr. Lamont?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I had a couple questions that I asked in the pre-meeting, and I was hoping to get those as part of the hearing tonight. So basically what I was asking was about return on investment and why we think that this is an important investment for us to make. And you spoke a little bit about, it's not just about the return on investment in this, but kind of what it does for the area and attracting other businesses. And so I hope you could speak to that for us.
I'm Sarah Normella, I'm the Downtown Real Estate and Development Manager. And in response to the questions that you had earlier, Councilor DeMott, we look at this in two different ways in terms of the benefit that it would bring to the city and our return on that investment. First, financially, we estimate that in total over the 5 years, based on a stabilization rate of approximately 36 months to stabilization of sales for tattered cover, that we estimate about $148,000 would be required to subsidize their lease up to the $25 a square foot amount. So that would be repaid within about 4 years' time, a little bit less than 4 years, through sales tax revenue generation. So the second way that we look at this is really about the character and the quality of our overall retail core and district. So Tattered Cover, just like Alamo Draft House and some of our other great retailers that are coming into the downtown, really help to establish the retail and synergize and attract additional retailers. And this is an important element because we do have dining and services already coming into the downtown site. Tattered Cover would be a soft goods retailer, helping us to establish that category, and that's one of the key areas for sales tax generation overall for the downtown. So, yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate that, and you getting that on there. I think it's important for the public to understand why we think this is a good investment of tax revenue. I also would commend your team for landing this because I think it's really exciting for the city. I've seen a lot of buzz since it went public, and so I'm very excited about it, and I appreciate you giving some color to it.
Thank you.
Ms. Sykes?
So I want to say thank you to our economic development team and also to the Tattered Cover for choosing to invest in Westminster. You're an institution, obviously, in the Front Range, and a place that I enjoyed going when I was younger and now have passed on to my kids. We go to Denver and just hang out and pick up books. And so I'm excited that it won't be quite the commute. So we're looking forward to having you.
Ms. Mackey?
Yes, I'd like to just echo Mayor Pro Tem Sight's words about how our words of thanks to both our economic development and Tattered Cover. I also want to say that for me, this is partly about revenue, but also, once again, about community. Independent bookstores, I think, are great gathering places. They build community. They're about arts and culture and book signings and a place to go just to unwind or look at a good book. And I used to, when I first moved here, and went to your Cherry Creek facility for the first time, I thought I'd landed in heaven. So I'm very excited. So thank you.
Any other comments from the board? If not, this is a roll call. Ms. Parker?
Haney.
Yes.
Sights.
Yes.
Scully.
Yes.
Volz.
Yes.
Atchison.
Yes.
DeMott.
Yes.
And the motion carries on a 7-0
You didn't
vote.
say my name.
Menke.
Yes.
I knew she wasn't going to turn it down after the comments. Next item on the agenda would be item A2. Back to you, Ms. Sykes.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I move to authorize the reallocation of $475,000 from the Downtown Westminster Developer Assistance B3 project into a new project account for the proposed economic assistance agreement.
Ms. Haney?
I'll second that.
Sorry. All right. At this point, is there any comments or questions from any member of the authority? Seeing none, this is a vote with your lights, please. And this one squeaks by on a very narrow vote of 7-0. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you and welcome to Westminster. And we look forward to the opening very soon. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes the business of the Westminster Economic Development Authority. On your agenda, we have 3 executive session items that will commence in about 7 minutes. So if you need to take a short bio, Another break will be in council boardroom.